Don't think so. The Ravens' odds at ESPN Bet did not change. But as you can see, they were already pretty good. They went from 9-1 to 9-1, third shortest to win the Super Bowl, second shortest behind KC in the AFC, shortest odds still to win the division. Ryan Clark, first thought when he saw it, I got to say, when I saw that, I thought to myself, wow, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the same backfield, that could be about as dynamic as anything we've ever seen. What was your first thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think when is the last time we ever came to work and Kimberly Martin was telling us, oh my goodness, the Ravens can't run the football. Now, we've heard the Ravens won't run the football.
Yeah, they didn't
the Ravens
didn't
run the football, but we've never had an issue with Derrick Henry having to add to a Ravens run game that has not been explosive, that has not been dynamic, that has not been physical.
Doing this to Josh Norman.
They've never had anyone who could do that.
Josh Norman is
They've never had anyone who could do that.
But you've also never seen people just run up on Gus Edwards willy-nilly, right? And so we're looking at a guy like Derrick Henry replacing Gus Edwards, and you're thinking about more so the aura of Derrick Henry than what he's actually going to add to a run game that was already number one in the entire NFL. Will you be scared? May you take dives sometimes instead of taking quarterback? Yes, you're going to have to make those decisions schematically, but this doesn't change the fate of the Baltimore Ravens. What changes the fate of the Baltimore Ravens is Lamar Jackson in that pass game being proficient and efficient in the playoffs, in the critical football moments. It's a coach understanding that we got here by running the football. There's nothing to prove because Patrick Mahomes is on the other side of the field, and that was Todd Monken as an offensive coordinator. I'm excited to see what this run game will look like from a physical standpoint, but this doesn't change the fact that Kansas City is the team to beat, and Vegas still has it right.
Lewis, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree that it doesn't put them necessarily in front of Kansas City for sure. And until someone is actually able to prove on the football field that they can beat Kansas City, I don't care what moves anybody makes, quite honestly, in the AFC. I'm never going to say that they're going to be the odds-on favorite above them. What I do like, though, is the fact that, look, when you're building your football team and you're always trying to incrementally improve your roster, this is the kind of move that you make because it fits stylistically what you want to be as an offense. You want a downhill thumper who now can go 80. He can go 80 on you. He will make corners and some safeties start to question whether or not, hey, how do I really want to hit this guy? Or do I really want to hit this guy? And that's just something that you can't deny. Keaton Mitchell, if he comes back, healthy from his knee injury, was one of the most explosive runners in all of football last year. And something that absolutely just gutted this offense when he got hurt, and John Harbaugh loves him. Both him and Derrick Henry are both near the tops of the league in terms of yardage after contact per rush, yardage after initial contact per rush. That is something that, look, that's just objectively the way the data is. This is a top 5 offense in terms of run block win rate. So, look, they're gonna maul you. They're going to maul you in the run game. But Ryan's right. The pass game is the next phase that needs to take it up a notch and be able to be multiple. They'll draft another wide receiver to go along with Zay Flowers. That part of the team will improve. Defensively, they're going to be good. But this, hey, look, it puts them a step closer, and I love the move.
Like closer. Can I just remind everyone, I understand Kansas City beat them in the game that really mattered. But the Ravens won 13 games last year. The Chiefs won 11. I mean, they were already ahead of them. It was one afternoon in which the Chiefs were the better team.
What they did was make a strength an even bigger strength by adding Derrick Henry. I love the move. I'm kind of in between RC and Lewis. I love the move because Todd Monken can stretch out a defense. He's also forcing defenses to be quick enough to keep Lamar in the pocket, but also strong enough to stop Derrick Henry from scoring, which is very hard to do. But again, when I look at this offense, I think the biggest thing when you add Derrick Henry is, okay, at least now we're guaranteed that they're going to run the ball in the playoffs. Great, because they forgot to do that. But again, what is going to take them over the top is drafting a wide receiver, adding more weapons in the passing game, because they were trying to pass the ball way too much when they shouldn't have been, when they should have been running the ball, and I just need them to be a little bit more balanced on offense.
Yeah, when you think about Derrick Henry, he's obviously one of the best backs of this generation, and you understand the physicality in running downhill, but the one lasting memory I have of Derrick Henry's Tennessee Titans career is when the Kansas City Chiefs were coming back to beat them in the playoffs, Derrick Henry had on a coat, right? Derrick Henry has been the best back in football for many of these years, and his team hasn't gotten to a Super Bowl.
Right.
And you're adding Derrick Henry, who's been the best back in football, who has not gotten to a Super Bowl, to an offense that was the best rushing offense in football, but also has not gotten to a Super Bowl. I am excited, too, about the names, right? So if you're looking at a roster and you're a defense going throughout the week and you're like, holy hell, they got Lamar Jackson. You understand what he individually means in the run game. You have Derrick Henry. You understand what he individually means in the run game. But what does that mean for playoff wins? The conversation about whether or not the Ravens can be a great regular season team is over. We shouldn't talk about this team until we get to the playoffs and how this affects them.
I mean, I guess all of that is fair. I can't argue with any of that. I will say I'm old enough to remember Derrick Henry taking a very mediocre Tennessee team to the AFC Championship game basically by himself.
How long ago was that?
Not that long.
Because his yards per game have gone down. They've been cut in half since 2020.
Yeah, but the rest of the offense is gone. They traded away their best receiver. I mean, in Tennessee, they basically punted on their entire offense except for Derrick Henry. Give me a quick final thought, Lewis.
Yeah, I wouldn't attribute his yards per carry going down too much, Kim, on him, experiencing some kind of precipitous decline. Look, their offensive line is nowhere near what it used to be in Tennessee. And he will realize, obviously, very quickly when he gets to Baltimore, this offensive line is much better than anything he has run behind recently. And I'll tell you this, teams respect Baltimore. Teams are wary of what Baltimore is doing. Okay, I can tell you, even Kansas City knew that they were up against it when they went into Baltimore. They weren't scared. I'm not saying that in the least. But teams respect what this roster really can present in terms of a challenge. And this is just another piece that's going to make it even tougher.
Means he is not going to sign with the Dallas Cowboys, continuing a week in which he has that in common with the rest of planet Earth. The Cowboys are just not signing anybody. They talked about being all in. Well, so far, they generally seem to have been all out. They haven't done anything. And their former receiver, Dez Bryant, is paying attention. He said, get ready to take the blame, Dak, because I really don't see no help coming your way unless a miracle happens. Everybody in the NFC East got better during free agency, but the Cowboys, the draft will not be enough. So I enlisted the help. I will do what you guys always do, and that is you always credit Hembo for giving you stats. Well, I asked Hembo to get me some stats. Because I asked Lewis a question this morning, again, if someday, if I am lucky enough to own an NFL team, Lewis is going to be my general manager. And I said, the teams that win this first day, like the first day of free agency is so splashy, right? I mean, everyone, all these big splashy signings. Does it actually correlate to winning in the regular season? And the answer is, yes, it does. If you look over the last 10 off seasons, the teams that were the top 3 spenders averaged 2 more wins in the following year. The teams that were the bottom 3 spenders averaged 1.5 fewer wins the following year. So it has made those are significant numbers, to be clear. So it has made a big difference, Lewis. So with that as the context, how big a deal should people be making of the fact that the Cowboys are basically standing pat and losing people?
Well, look, when you ask me this question, look, I understand how in the recent past, in the past decade, that it has correlated to wins. Unfortunately, I've been a part of organizations where we were big spenders in the first 48 hours and it amounted to nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, it amounted to turmoil. So, look, I think with Dallas, you have to understand that, look, this is a long off season. And I think a lot of the things, or really the one position that really we are giving them a lot of grief about is the running back position, because of the fact that we think that Dak Prescott needs help, and he does need help. And why were they not in the market for Derrick Henry, especially that profile of running back, considering that, look, Tony Pollard's no longer in the fold. They had a hammer at one time in Ezekiel Elliott. He's no longer there. So what are you going to do now? Obviously, they're kind of like right now they're up against it because they're trying to get Dak renegotiated. They know that CD's on the horizon. They know that Micah's on the horizon. So people are going, what are you doing? Do something. You're not doing anything. But I'll tell you this. If they come up in the draft, right, and they draft a guy like, let's just say, Trey Benson out of Florida State. Say they wind up getting him, early on in the draft, and you have a 6'2", 6'3", 220-pound running back who runs 4.4, who I've seen personally twice, and the kid can absolutely get after it. And he goes for 1,300 next year, and the running game isn't a problem. As a matter of fact, it's a strength. Then we're going to look back at this and go, man, we were just sitting here, yapping away at Dallas for no reason. So they still have time to correct it. But I will say this. They better go ahead and make these moves that amount to something that's going to help them. Because if they don't, we're going to come back to these conversations going, hey, man, what were you doing? You said you were all in, but you did nothing. But they still have time, but we're going to be watching close. That's for sure.
Trey Benson, for those of you who don't know, transfer from Oregon, ran for 1,900 yards, 23 touchdowns for Florida State the last 2 seasons, and he ran a 4.39 at the Combine. So maybe they can replace that with a rookie. But the fact remains, like, the world wants to see the Cowboys do something, and they've done nothing.
Yeah, they've done nothing, and it's more so not necessarily that the world wants to see it. It's that when listening to Jerry Jones, the world expected it. Dak Prescott is being asked questions about Jerry Jones's statements. Also, Micah Parsons is saying, if he's all in, I want to see that because I feel like we haven't done enough in the past off seasons. And now he's sitting at home and he's watching the Saquon Barkleys and the Chauncey Gardner-Johnsons go to teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. He's watching Brian Burns make the defense of the New York Giants a better rush team because of his acquisition. He's seeing the Washington Commanders make moves like take his old teammate Dante Fowler and make him a part of what they are. Frankie Louvu also defensively. And so he's watching all of these things happen in the NFC East as people get better and the Dallas Cowboys are not. Lewis spoke about the one position we're focusing on because you lose Tony Pollard, that was already a bad backfield last year, and you miss out on a guy like Derrick Henry. But what about the linebacker position and stopping the run? What about the loss of Dan Quinn and what they did defensively with the roster that was built specifically to do what they needed on third down, do what they needed in sub packages? What about CeeDee Lamb when you think about the Green Bay Packer game in the wild card round when CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott didn't seem to have chemistry? Who else stepped up outside of them in the pass game? This isn't a great roster, and to do nothing at this point, to me, is a problem. The most disappointing team thus far.
I think RC pretty much laid it out when he said, this is the mistake, when we were listening to Jerry Jones. Because even Dak, like, listen, honestly, that's it, because Dak is like, oh, I don't know what all